Hello, welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and today I wanted to share with you a few thoughts on planning for fiber festivals and attending them, things to consider before going to one. And none of this is a must-do or have to buy or anything like that. I am not here to tell you what to do with your money or what to buy or not to buy. I just wanted to share some ideas on how someone who might prefer a little more planning going into these kind of endeavors from attending some fiber festivals. I have learned a few things, and I just thought maybe I would share some of those things with you. While we are chatting today, I am knitting on my Weekend Cami by Amy Scher. I'm knitting this in a yarn by the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. It is from one of their Sock Squad yarns, and that is an annual yarn subscription. So that is the beautiful green project that I am knitting on right now. It is so delightful, and I just love this color. Right now I'm on the body section where I'm just knitting round and round, so I don't have to look very often, and I can chit chat with you while I work on this project. So I've broken down this little video into a few sections. First one is budget, so that may affect whether or not you attend the event at all. And then I talk a little bit about planning, like layout planning, and then I talk a little bit about project planning. And then at the end, I talk a little bit about things to consider bringing. And of course, everybody's travel energy, travel planning is a little bit different. And then depending on where you are in relation to the event, you may need to fly, or maybe take a train, or maybe take a boat, or walk, or drive, or whatever type of transportation it may be. That will be, of course, depending on the person and the location as well. So again, these are just ideas to think about, and in the comments below, you are welcome to share your own experiences on what worked or didn't work for you, but I would definitely cautiously advise people not to use the comments section as a place to tell other people what to do or what not to do, or to criticize their choices on what worked for them or didn't work for them. All right, the first topic is budget. Now, everybody's budget is different. That is not for anybody here to judge. I do think it's important to think about budget. How much do you want to spend on traveling? So is it even going to be worth it for you to attend, or manageable, feasible? Worth it, I feel like, is also very personal, because what's worth it for one person may not be worth it for another person. So then travel budget needs to be thought about. Yarn and yarn adjacent potential purchases. How much do you want to allot to that? Are you wanting to refrain from buying any yarn and maybe save your budget for other items? Maybe you have your eye on buttons or mugs or other fiber related things, but not specifically on yarn. Or maybe you have specific sweater quantities you are looking to pick up, and if you know who the dyer is, you can look up how much their yarn costs ahead of time, usually on their websites, and then budget accordingly that way. Also to make note are event ticket prices. Some have no entry ticket fee, and some do have entry ticket fees. So budgeting in that amount, and some events have adjacent events, and so the timing and days of those you might want to look into and see how much you want to budget for those as well, in terms of the event ticketing prices as well as potential purchases. Another thing to think about is food. beverages, things like that. Do they allow outside food and beverage in? If not, and you're going to have to purchase while you are there, are the items allergy friendly for somebody who might have allergies, or other considerations to think about? How much is that food or beverage going to cost, and how does that affect your budgeting? If this location is somewhere you have to travel pretty far to, maybe you need to look into lodging. Maybe it's something you want to try splitting a cost of an Airbnb with other potential friends, or maybe this is your single getaway where you have some quiet time to think for yourself. I don't know, there's just a lot of things to consider, but lodging definitely can add up, and maybe you have a friend in the area that would be happy letting you crash with them. That can save a lot of money. All right, so we've talked about budgeting. Let's talk about planning as far as like the logistics of the space goes. A lot of events will give you a list of their vendors and a map of the event prior to the actual event. Having that map can help you plan out where you want to go, who you want to see, and things like that. Now, of course, if your plan is to have no plan, that's totally okay. Feel free to wander if that's your style. However, if you have certain vendors that you definitely want to go hug, you definitely want to go squish their yarn, I would definitely highlight those vendors and take note of where they are on the map. That way you can most efficiently get to the places you want to go. Some events have timed entries, which I feel like is a little stressful, but at the same time, I feel like that can be great because you don't have as much crowding of different spaces. And so in some ways it's safer because you control how many people are in that given space at any given time. So having a game plan can be really helpful. You can beeline it to the vendor you definitely want to get to. You can get the item that you definitely want to get prior to being really tired from wandering around and around for some time. So I definitely recommend looking at the map and checking out the vendor list prior to going to the event. That way your head is still clear and you can get a better idea of who it is that you want to see, and realistically if you're able to get to all the things that you want to get to. Okay, the project planning is the part that I find most exciting because I always have a long queue of projects, and that may be projects for myself and maybe projects for my children or my husband, but I generally have it figured out what I'm going to be making, probably enough for the next 5 years. But I have a plan, and some of the patterns I have already paid for, and some I haven't. Some I've already made in the past and maybe I'm making again. But having an idea of how much yarn I need and in what weight ahead of time is super helpful to me. I know personally I can get overwhelmed when I go into a vendor's booth and I see all the beautiful yarn. I want to go home with all this stuff. But having a project in mind with specific yardages and fiber weight, and even sometimes I jot down ideas for color, that can really help me focus and hone in on what exactly I am looking for. And then I can make additional decisions from that if I need to, but at least I have an idea of what it is that I'm looking for. So I don't just go in completely overwhelmed, but in a good way because it's also beautiful and exciting, but I tend to then walk away with nothing because I'm so overwhelmed that I just decide I'm not going to purchase anything. Or I end up purchasing a couple of things here and there, but they end up not being exactly what I actually needed. If it isn't yarn that you're shopping for, maybe it's buttons. Writing down how many buttons you need for that specific cardigan and what size of buttons you need can be really helpful. And I'll just slide in here too that bringing a ruler can sometimes be helpful because some places that have the vintage buttons may or may not have all the diameters written down of the buttons. And sometimes eyeballing things can work, but sometimes it's tricky because depending on what it's next to, it can look a lot bigger or a lot smaller, and then you get it home and you're like, that's not what I needed. So having a ruler on hand can be really handy, but that's more in the to bring section, but I wanted to bring it up here since I was talking about the buttons. Now for the project planning stuff, you can either write it down, print it out, whatever way works best for you. Maybe you want to put it in your phone. I would just caution a little bit for phone usage because if the battery dies, I don't want to be stuck not be able to access any of the information I need if I put it all on my phone. So I tend to be more of a pencil paper person and just write things down if I need to. If you printed out a vendor list map, maybe write it on the back of that map, the things that you are shopping for, and that way it's right there. Now, of course, yes, you can lose the paper too. So if you really want to, you could just have both, like take a picture of your paper and put it on your phone or write it in the notepad section or something like that. Do whatever works for you. But I would just caution against relying completely on the phone or being able to access your Ravelry, because sometimes Wi-Fi isn't the best in some of these locations, just given the sheer number of people there, or maybe the concrete walls are too thick. Whatever the case is, I don't want to be stuck not being able to access the information that I need because I'm so reliant on my phone. Okay, we are down to what to bring. Again, disclaimer, bring whatever you want. These are just some ideas on what has worked for me in the past. So I mentioned the ruler, bring a ruler. I mentioned that one because I forgot a ruler the last time I went shopping for buttons, and fortunately, most of the vendors did have a ruler so that I could measure the buttons to see if they were the size that I needed. If you are working on a particular garment and maybe you are looking for a contrast color, bring your swatch if you made one. If you have space and are okay with carrying your work in progress around, maybe bring that. That way you can color match better. I feel like our brains sometimes think something is one color, but then in person it is not quite that color, and just having it there can really help you do the color comparison better. And if you really can't bring it with you, a picture is the best that you can do, or the swatch. Now, speaking of bringing things, I recommend bringing one of those very compact grocery bags, because chances are you're going to do some shopping, and possibly more shopping than you intended on. So having that extra bag is so handy. I have two just sitting here to show you. They wrap up super small, and I can't remember the material, if it's nylon or polyester. It is a synthetic material, and they are not waterproof, but I believe water resistant. So if you spill a little, it's not too big of a deal. But they do wrap up really, really small, but open really, really big. I'm going to show you this one. It has a snap closure, but it opens to be a pretty big tote bag. So here we go. This can hold quite a bit of yarn. And it folds up so small that you can tuck it into your backpack, your purse, or your pocket for when you need it next. Now, that brings me to another small item that can be super helpful, and that is a carabiner. Now, this clip can clip onto any backpack or a purse, and so if you need to keep your hands free from maybe knitting or touching more yarn or going shopping, having this carabiner can clip your bag. Oops, here we go. I don't have a backpack here to show you, but you can clip this easily onto the back of a backpack or a strap or something else, and that will keep your hands free. So a carabiner is not very expensive, and I feel like this can be really useful. It can also hold a water bottle onto your bag and other items, and that just keeps your hands free for all the other fun things you want to do. I mentioned hooking the carabiner to a water bottle. I do feel like staying hydrated is really important. There will probably be a lot of talking, and there's a lot of dust and things flying around. It might even be really hot depending on where you are or when this fiber festival is. So just having water on hand can be a great way to enjoy the day. I don't know about you, but scouting out where the bathrooms are, I feel like is really important. So that goes back to the map, but I thought of it because on my list, I also have written down hand sanitizer and antibacterial wipes. If you are flying or have limited space, I recommend getting like the 1 gallon or 2 gallon Ziploc type of bags, or the packing cubes where you can pack everything in and then zip it down. There's usually 2 zippers to really compress the yarn. The yarn is not going to get damaged, and then you don't take up all this space with all that extra fluff. Now, depending on whether it's going to be hot or cold, I would definitely bring a hat. Sun hat if it's going to be very sunny and hot, and maybe a wool hat if it's going to be cold. It's no fun if you're going to be overheated or freezing at any of these events. And also, if it's going to be cold, I would definitely bring fingerless mitts. That way my fingers are still available to touch the yarn, but I stay a little cozier. I'm sure there are lots of other things to think about and discuss. These are just a few of the things that I have thought of as I've attended some fiber-related events over the years. We have lots and lots of fiber festivals here in Minnesota, where I'm coming to you from, and I just love our smaller events. I find them easy to get to because, again, they are local to me, but also I enjoy the environment. I feel like things are pretty spread out in the sense that the booths aren't all packed really close and next to each other. I never feel super pressured to purchase anything or that something's going to sell out. And even if it does, that's okay with me. I don't like feeling the pressure of something that's exclusive or having to rush to any particular table or vendor or things like that, and I just feel like they're much more chill events, and that's more up my alley. So of course, to each their own. If you enjoy the high energy of other big fiber festivals, then go for it. There are some that are so fun and exciting, at least from what I've heard other people say. I haven't been to them, but I think to each their own. You have to figure out what kind of rhythm of fiber festival works for you, and maybe depending on the stage of life you're in, it can be different. What I'm trying to say is, just depending on your own personality, your mood, your stage in life, and where you are with everything, your type of festival may be different than somebody else's, and that's totally okay. There are so many of them around the world, and they bring in so many different creative people, and it's an incredible energy. And if you ever get the chance to attend a fiber festival, I think it's an experience definitely to try if it's something that you are curious about. Oh, I think one more thing I forgot to mention in the what to bring, I'm gonna put my knitting down for a second, is that I really like having a crossbody type of bag. This is the Core Belt bag. It has a free sewing pattern, and I'll link to that in the description box below this video. But I sewed this, was it last summer or 2 summers ago? And it is the larger version, and I like to keep all my essentials in here. So my wallet, my keys, my phone, but I also have a sock project in here. Now, if you're not a sock knitter, that's fine. You could have a hat or a mitt, or a sweater probably wouldn't fit in here unless you were maybe just doing the neckband. But I will put a sock in here, just in a little drawstring bag so it doesn't get tangled up in anything. And I'll have my 50-gram cake in here because I split my 100-gram cake in half to knit my socks 2 at a time on their own needles. But in here I have a sock, and I'll put the name and stuff of things on the screen here. But I am on the foot of this sock, and I just put it in this little drawstring bag, and I keep it in my purse for whenever I have a few minutes to knit a few rounds, and away I go. So I can knit with this just in front of me with the zipper slightly open. So when I go to events, I can have this on the front. I can have my backpack on the back for bigger items or for shopping purposes, but this way I have the things I need right in front of me, and it just makes it really easy to access. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to share with you today about planning for a fiber festival event. Hopefully it answered some questions that you might have had, and maybe it gave you some ideas on whether or not attending one might be sometime in your future. If you have any suggestions or things that you've learned from your own experiences, feel free to share them in the description box below this video. And again, just a gentle reminder that what works for you may or may not work for other people, and we are not here to judge what works for somebody or not. You get to decide what works best for you, and by people sharing what works for them, it may be an idea for something that you might want to tuck into your back pocket. With that, cheers to being creative, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!